already been written. It's like, now here's another second piece, because I've heard so much recently about parallel lives. Where was it? I heard, and then the old Twilight Zones, right? It was a few days ago. I flipped on one of those and it was talking about parallel universe. And I really feel like, when the students are ready, the teacher will come. And I think I'm hearing more and more people describe these other places, or the world in this particular world. The Twin Towers were still standing.
Right, yeah.
Things that happened.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Karen here, welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. So wonderful to be with you all again, as always. Here we are in 2022. Another wild ride ahead for us this year. I can't tell you how much drama is happening around me with people, deaths and sickness and all sorts of things happening. But as spiritual light weavers here to bring the light to the planet, it's not for us to get too swept up in the drama. It's for us to stay centered in our knowing that all that is happening happens for us and not to us. And today I want to introduce you to a wonderful woman who's had an amazing near-death experience, Claudia Watts Edge. Welcome to the show, Claudia.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm looking forward to exploring your lessons and your stories more. You've had an amazing experience and continue to. And let me read your bio. And please remember, if you're liking the shows, to hit that bell button, the subscribe button, and leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. It really helps the algorithms and helps share the shows, because I've turned off all the ads on the YouTube channel. Did it a while ago. And when I did, my subscription plummeted and YouTube stopped sharing the shows. It's a business. They want to make money. Fair enough. And if they're not making money off it, they're not interested. So it's up to you guys to share the shows, so that we can grow, we can spread the love. Let me tell you about Claudia. Claudia Edge had a profound NDE in 1984. It was a little while ago when she and her baby daughter died together in a sea of blood and pain. Sounds gory. She has been researching NDEs and spiritual phenomena ever since. Claudia has written now 3 award-winning books, including 2 books called Gifts from the Edge, one, Stories from the Other Side, and the second book, Lessons from the Other Side, a continuing series of dream experiences in a place she calls Spirit School, where she's given connecting pieces of the spiritual puzzle to be shared with the world through parables and short stories. It's so interesting that you're sharing it through short stories and parables, because the guides that communicate with me do the same. And the Bible was written in parables and short stories, because the human mind really hears the story. Like, I've listened to so many profound spiritual teachers. I remember Wayne Dyer, one of the most beautiful spiritual teachers, and he wrote so many books about, this is what you should do, like instructional books, all fabulous information. But my poor little linear human mind couldn't remember any of it. But when he told a story, I remembered the story, and therefore I remembered the lesson from the story. So congratulations for that. That's why I put people's stories on the show, so people learn through other people's stories.
Right.
Claudia has been called a modern day mystic with an ability to pull back the curtain between the worlds and beyond. Her recently released 3rd book, We Touched Heaven, is a global connection of transformational spiritual experiences and is getting nods from the NDE community. They're getting nods, including Dr. Raymond Moody, who's calling the book terrific. Okay, well, let's go back to 1984 and hear what happened. Your daughter and you died together. She came back, you came back, you both came back?
Yeah, we both came back.
So when you had the shared experience, were you together in an astral world, in the spirit world, or anyway? I'll let you tell the story.
It's a great question, and I'll answer it now in case I don't get to it. You start getting into the story, and she's the one that had the beautiful little twins that is living with me right now, and she's wonderful, beautiful, all of that we went through together. But I had pondered why, had I seen her on the other side or whatever, and she really had never taken a mortal breath. She was still in utero when she had drowned in my blood. And so she was still of the spirit world. Basically, her soul had not, I guess, experienced Earth yet. So that made sense to me, why I didn't see her. So, all right. Well, yeah, 1984, I was getting ready to have my fifth and last baby. My due date was within a few days. And I speak about intuition because I did have an intuition. It had been brought up to me that I had 4 other children, successfully healthy children, that maybe I should just save money and have a midwife. Now, I'm not disparaging midwives at all. I have a dear friend that does that type of work, honestly. But something within me said, that's not for me. And so it was the first intuition in this saga that I followed. And the second was this day I had gone into a contraction and my uterus was quite hard and just like a rock. And it was not releasing. And I tried to go about my day, but it just never released. And I started to feel like that the baby might be in some kind of distress. And I followed an intuition that said, get to the hospital and just have this checked. I knew it wasn't labor type contractions, but let's go have this checked. So at the hospital, I was encouraged to walk around and try to get something kind of moving. But third intuition, I just didn't feel like I was supposed to leave that particular area near the nurse's station. And I went back after they sent me out for a walk. Within like 5 minutes, I came back. And I said, I just don't feel right. Something is not quite right. And she said, well, let's get a gown on you, And so in doing that, I noticed some large drops of blood started to fall. And I got nervous. I'm not used to that. And looking on this tile floor, my bare feet, and I rang for the nurse. And, she was trying to calm me down and, just say, this is okay. It's, we'll get through it. But at that time, it was like this bucket just dropped of right between my legs, just blood everywhere. It was blast, it was just so horrendous that it was everywhere. It was on the floor, it was on our legs, it was on the walls, it was, and it was so much blood. It just looked like this huge bomb of blood had gone off. And of course, both of us, now the nurse is going, not saying, oh, this is normal. She's pushing me down on a gurney that was laying nearby. Now, this is still an examination. Well, I had been in the changing room where I saw this. So we were in the next room over, which is just an examination room. But there was a gurney kind of table there. And she pushed me onto that and started screaming code. It was like this, the blood was just rushing, and I was in no pain at that time, just like, what the heck is going on? And they found an intern because my doctor had been called and said, she's not even really having contractions, so no worries. And this young intern came in the room, and I gave myself into his hands. I just said, please save my baby. I didn't know what was going on, but please, as a mother, this is, save my baby was my concern. And as he took one look assessed the room and said, this woman's got 2 minutes of blood left. I mean, it was that quick. Now, we're talking, I had been in that back room for less than maybe 5 minutes, something like that. My husband was in an adjacent room filling out insurance forms. He had no idea that this was happening and that I'm now in a life and death situation. And it's really interesting, when you think you're in a situation that you could die, but to have someone tell you you're dying, it's like, and you wonder your whole life, am I going to be hit by a bus or be in a car accident or, some kind of awful disease or, what is going to be my demise? We've all thought of that from time to time. And so I laid there and thought, this is mine. This is how I'm going. And I tried to stay calm. I had lost my dad. My dad died when I was 16. It was a really horrific accident at work. And I missed him. And as I was contemplating dying, knowing I was dying, and my expression of sadness over my children and who was going to be left behind, because I was completely lucid. Again, I wasn't in pain. My eyes were completely wide open. I had no type of anesthesia. Didn't have oxygen. I was just, laying there in this position of my life draining away. And I could tell something was happening because I was going blind. I started not to be able to see what was happening. The lights were really dimming above me, and I kept trying to see if they were still on, but my hearing had become really acute. I could hear everything in the hospital, pockets of conversations that wasn't just a collection of noise, like a cafeteria or something, a low roar. It was, I could hear specific conversations if I just tuned in. And that was interesting. And so as this young doctor came in, he took a scalpel and basically cut me from stem to stern for this, for an easy, accessible exit for the baby. This is an emergency C-section, not the nice bikini ones across the belly that they can kind of fix later. This was hold her down and let's get that baby out and see why she's bleeding so profusely. And I'll add right here, because I forget, and then people go crazy in the comments, what happened was my placenta. The placenta is necessary for the baby. It feeds the baby, keeps the baby in good health and growing and everything. It's that in between the mother and child that regulates blood and amniotic fluid and everything. It's a very necessary organ that had been collecting blood, had been pumping into the organ, but it was, for some reason, it was not exiting. And so after hours and hours of this blood collection, it had gotten really hard, and it was, extremely taut to the point where it finally exploded. And so it wasn't I've heard it called like an abrevia or, something, the placenta ripping from the wall or something. It literally, they called it living shrapnel. It exploded within my entire cavity. And to be graphic, sorry audience. But so as I laid there before in absolutely no pain, as they cut me, it was a weird sensation. How do you even express what that felt like? It felt like salt in a wound. It wasn't as horrible as you would think. That scalpel is sharp, it stings. I thought, oh my goodness, I think I can handle this. If I just lay here and be calm and not let my heart race, but when I noticed that a nurse was wrapping this gray rope around her arm like it was a garden hose. And the pain was so horrific. I realized, oh my goodness, that's my intestines, because they have to move, your parts to get to the baby. And it was just that pain, again, words cannot express. I've never experienced anything like that. Hope I never do again. But I kept thinking.
So were they doing this all without anesthetic?
With no anesthesia, no nothing, not even an aspirin. Just
Gosh.
hold me down, arms and legs. And me, all I wanted to do was jump, off that gurney and run. It's like you're trying to hold, but I had the presence of mind to try and hold still, to be a good patient and, save my own life and my baby's life. So I was really trying to be good, but I'll insert there was so much blood, they were slipping around all around me in it. This sweetest woman came in with a mop and, the bucket and the mop. And she was trying to get around so that they could, be stable in this arena around me. And at one point, because I had been held down, the only thing I could move were my fingertips. And she leaned in to kind of, I guess, do a little mopping right there. And I grabbed her, and I grabbed her right here in her underpinning of her arm and grabbed what I could grab. And I held on to her, and her knees just buckled. She just dropped as far as she could, but I couldn't let go. And I was trying to mouth, "I'm sorry" to her, as I knew I was just hurting her so badly, but I couldn't let go. And it was about that time where I'd had enough. It was just, I just couldn't take any more. I saw the walls of the room, there was no ceiling any longer, and the walls were becoming fluid. They were like almost liquid-like, and they were waving. Everything started to just kind of, I'm thinking of the word crumble, but it wasn't crumble, but it just changed. Everything changed, and it was coming inward. And I was lucid enough, and I had heard of near-death experiences after my father died. I listened to, everything, not listened, it wasn't like this then, but read books or whatever I could get as far as an NDE. And so I thought, oh my goodness, as I was going blind and kind of going back into darkness, I was pulling backwards, and here the walls were coming with me. I thought, oh, this is the tunnel. I know what this is. This is what they've talked about, is this tunnel. And about that time, I popped out of my body. And I wanted to express to the audience that, of course, the hurt part, the dying part hurt, okay? But death itself was easy. It was a soft, quick pop. And I was out of my body. It was like a changing of frequency or air. I've described it before as like a children's, those pop guns where it's a rubber gun and they put a ping pong and, they push the air out and it pops. That's what it seemed like to me, was just this, and a soft hearing of like chimes, but I was free, and I remember I kind of floated throughout the hospital. There's I've written some of the stories, and I want to get to some of the really good stuff, so I won't take a ton of time on that. But there was a point where I was following the music, and the music was the theme song from MASH. I don't know, da 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 da, and I was in a man's room. He had MASH on TV, and for some reason I was there by his side. But after a few moments, I could tell that he didn't know I was there. And as soon as I had that thought of, I must be dead, because everything was so natural. Floating through walls was natural. It was simple. It was easy. I've done it before. I wasn't afraid. It was like muscle memory. It's like, oh, I'm out of the body. Let's go be free. it was that simple. So I wanted to express to the audience, it's not something to fear. You've done it so many times before. It's easy, right? You'll remember. And yeah, as soon as I thought, I must be dead, I'm in another place. And I was in this expanse, this perfect, I cry because I grasped so hard for the words to describe how amazing this place was, that I couldn't see anything. It was all feeling. It was so dark, but it was intelligent. It was conscious. It knew me. It held me, cradled me lovingly. I was in so much the enormity of love for me that I could have stayed there forever. I was completely satisfied. There was nothing that could top that feeling. Nothing, I've been asked, did you have a body? I don't know. I couldn't see anything, but it was perfect. I was there. Everything, this Claudia, this mind, the memories, everything came with me to this place. I was exactly me. And I was so comfortable until I heard someone calling me, this ear, I could hear this awful sound, and it was a nurse, or, saying, Claudia, come back. Your baby's alive and she needs you. And I was just, I wasn't having any of it. I knew my baby had perished. I had seen wasn't even going to say that part, but it's an awful thing to see a baby that is, not alive. And I knew that she wasn't. So this voice, because I was so used to this quiet environment, this peace, and whatever transpired as far as trying to get an understanding of where I was telepathic. It was not a spoken thing. And here, words were coming into my perfect environment, and they were scratchy and rough and awful sounding. Just the human voice, compared to a telepathic understanding, is so irritating. And I wanted to push her away and just kind of, roll back deeper into this perfect darkness. But eventually, and I thought, okay, what I'm going to do, because she wouldn't let up, I thought, I'm just going to say no. I'm just going to I don't want to come back or whatever. But as soon as I thought of, how to even say that, using voice, it was like I was back in my body. So my perfect, visit, and I came back to the body completely confused of where I had been, because I hadn't fainted. I didn't have anesthesia. I didn't go into a pharmaceutical sleep from medication or anything like that. I came back completely lucid as well. So it's like, what just happened? This was not like any other near-death experience story that I had read in all those years. From 16, now I'm 31. So I'd spent many years reading Dr. Raymond Moody's books and whomever I could get a hold of. It didn't match. It didn't make sense. And I had grown up in this place, this state of heavy religion. It was like, I didn't want to say I had gone to darkness. I was afraid of the connotation of good, bad, evil, so that because they had asked me in the hospital, because I had gone through this in the raw, basically, they called me Pioneer Woman. And so I was getting visitors, asking questions. And one of the first visitors, she was trying to have me describe the pain, which I still, after all these years later, there isn't words to describe that kind of pain. But the second question was, when you were dead, it was a teaching hospital, and there was no it was, you were dead. They called me morgue gray. I mean, I had bled out. How I'm here right now, I don't know. All I know is that he performed 2 miracles in my baby, and I survived. Again, this was 1984. So, the thought wasn't as open to NDEs or whatnot, but there was someone doing research on it, and they asked me, when you were dead, what did you see anything or hear anything? Did you talk to any, there were these questions, and I was like, no. And she was like, had you gone anywhere? And I just said, I went to darkness. And it wasn't the answer, I think, that they were looking for. And God bless her, but something went across her face that seemed negative to me. Seemed like it wasn't the response that she was looking for, the garden, grandma, seeing all the wonderful things on the other side, that I went to blackness. I guess, and we're empathic, right? I mean, it was something that just went across her face when I was trying to be truthful and answer her question, that really turned me off. And I thought, okay, if a researcher of this didn't get it, how am I supposed to explain this to my neighbors or my mom, or, all of these people who are, so much into religion, that are going to start thinking I must be bad or something, and you start questioning yourself. Like, I had this beautiful experience, sacred, I just kept it in my heart for so, still, it's mine, it's special. And to try and share that with someone else who might spoil it, put some kind of dirty thought to it, it was like, no, I'm keeping it in my special spot, and it's mine, and I'm going to keep it there. And so I didn't talk about it. I could talk about this, being cut open and all that kind of stuff, but for 30 years, I couldn't say a thing. Yeah, I listened and studied and wanted to know more, and I got involved with ions, and was, at a conference, and they had put experiencer on the lanyard that I was wearing, but I kept turning the lanyard on the other side because I didn't want somebody to ask about my experience. I wasn't ashamed of it, but it was like there was a kind of a bit of jealousy. Somebody who had this amazing story of, where they had gone and who they had seen and what they learned, and and then they come back and they write this marvelous book about it. And I'm going, yeah, I went to some darkness, and it's like, what? And I hadn't, I think a lot of us were in the closet, not knowing what to do with that till, I've heard of so much of that now, so many more that have talked about the void, right? The wonderful, beautiful place, this immense blackness, and in hearing the void, to me, that's not the word I use because of my connotation. And that's the problem with our language, right? Everything that we say, we respond differently to different terms. And to me, void says nothing, it's nothing, but it was everything. So for me to say it was like void of something, it doesn't gel for me. That doesn't work for me. So in our limited language, and I'll expand on that too. It's like, what works when you have a show like this and you have amazing, diversified guests, right? We're all so different. We all have such a different story, and we all have such a different delivery of our stories,
Yeah.
And I'll look at some, and I listened to her program, Bianca, and she just had this in her titles, and all of these mystical, wonderful words, and shaman this and everything. I was like, oh my goodness, that it's like when people study and learn and go, and travel the world and look for the answers, in their way. And here I am, I've been in a couple of states in my life, right? And it's kind of like what I get. I didn't, I did study NDEs and other spiritual phenomena, but it wasn't that I went to classes or expanded beyond what I was getting myself. And I'll get into that a little deeper. But
yeah, I heard you say on another show that after you decided never to talk about it, you still studied it, but you just got on with the rest of your life, got married, had children, normal life, rather than going to Peru and sitting at the foot of the shaman like Bianca.
Right.
And having ayahuasca ceremonies like all the, younger generation are now. God love the younger generation.
Yeah.
A couple of things I want to ask you.
Well, I just wanted to say, terminology is such a big thing, because we've got this telepathic ability on the other side. Nothing is misunderstood. But if I happen to use a word on your show, Karen, that turns somebody off, I'm sorry. It's like we pull in what we grew up with, God is comfortable, or Heavenly Father is comfortable, or Source is, our Creator, whatever. And I try and throw different terminology out there. And, because there are some words that used to turn me off, and I don't want to turn off the message. So I think we're all necessary on, like, your program, to deliver in our way. And I hope that the words I have touch those, those that will kind of look at it, hold it up to the light and examine it.
Darling, you're doing a stellar job. Verbal communication is such a poor way to communicate. I think there's like 90% of the communication we have with people we get through really what is awareness and telepathy or empathy. We get those, just like you said, it's a very normal state to look at the expression on someone's face and to feel what they're really saying rather than the words coming out of their mouth. That's normal for most people, unless you're listening to a podcast where you can't see people. But, there's these visual clues and feeling what people are saying. We all operate like that. We're not, most people, not you and I and the consciousness or spiritual community, but they're just not aware that they're operating like that. But a couple of things I wanted to ask you. So I'm getting an image of your daughter watching the whole thing happen from her.
Oh, wow.
From her perch in spirit, like, again, words, not the best way to, but she's watching this, like, you said, she was a baby, so the consciousness or soul hadn't really entered the body at this point. I was listening to Michael Tamura yesterday, one of my favorite teachers, who was also on Third Eye Salon. He's one of the master teacher. I've had him on my show many times, and we'll get him back this year. And someone asked him, when does the soul enter the body? And he said, well, I don't know when other people's do, but when I did, it was after birth. And he said, there's a choice when you can enter. If you want to go and have the experience of being all cramped up inside and feel that, he said, you can do that. But most people think, nah, that looks too squishy for me. I'll come in after birth. So with your daughter, I'm thinking it was the same thing. That,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did hear something, that it's a choice, absolutely, that there is kind of an agreement, with the body, the kind of the animal, the human animal, and the spirit kind of, they have to kind of join and be in a togetherness or whatnot. So some like to come in early and get that all set up, that, that there's an acceptance there. The body accepts that soul and all that. It's kind of interesting. I can't remember where I heard that from. That's not from me.
There's a merging of the consciousness of the body and the consciousness of the soul, because the body is conscious and the body can exist without the soul being in it.
Right.
People in coma, even it can be animated and eat and everything. I've seen it in old people's homes. I remember going to see my dad's cousin, who was in her late her husband, and we used to go to this and there was a woman next door that had been there for years. And I looked into her room, and she was sitting up in a chair and eating, not communicating, but eating. And there was like, there's no soul in that body, and the husband was tending to her and had been for years, and she wasn't there. And I'm like, wow. Anyway, it was really fascinating. That's another story. But so did your daughter remember any of this? Like, has she had any regression or anything? So when
she's so not in this realm that even if she, I don't know, I don't even think she would talk about it if something came.
Maybe one day. But
yeah.
When before you left your body, you noticed that the baby was born and it was like pronounced dead. The nurses pronounced it dead. Did they revive her?
They revived her, and she was basically a drowning victim, right?
Because she had so much blood in her lungs and stuff, right?
My blood in her lungs. And so what they did, I was out, so I don't know, but this is what I heard afterwards. I knew that they were checking her blood gases every hour. And I knew that they were saying if she lives 2 hours, if she lives 4 hours, if she makes it through the night. And they didn't know what her mental capacity would be if she had been damaged or whatnot. So they were really watching her, but she was basically, whatever pumped or got the blood out of her lungs, and then watched to see what she did. And she was wonderful. It took a while, but she's wonderful.
And now she's in her 40s, is it? Yeah, 80s.
Yeah,
40s. Yeah. Look, I'm amazed that you found the NDE stuff back in the 80s. I'm like, go girl. That was because, before the internet, and you found Dr. Raymond Moody.
And I grew up in a religion that, God bless them, they did believe in the afterlife. So that was not poo-pooed.
Yeah.
So there were even, books within the church of that. So
wow.
I read everything, it was kind of, I lost my dad in 1969. So it was the 1970s.
Wow.
And things were coming out. But,
the 1970s was an amazing, the 1960s and the 1970s, an amazing revolutionary period. And much like we're going through, in the 2020s, we're going through another revolutionary period where the status quo is being, resisted by many. Anyway, that's another conversation. Another question I had was, when you came back into your body, had they already stitched you up? I mean, when they were stitching you up and everything, were you out?
When I came back to my body, I was still in the room, but they had put an oxygen or something they were holding something down on my face. And because I woke up and I was resisting that, again, being held down and whatnot. So they were in the process of stitching me and doing all of that. And I was only in that condition, in that pop back to the body. And then, it was pretty much, I was pretty out of it. I mean, for days and days afterwards. But I did remember that pop.
Yeah. So you popped back in like a pop.
Yeah.
When you, they had already, by that point, you'd had some anesthetic, right? They'd managed to get some anesthesia into you at that point.
As far as I know,
surely. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting into the gory details. I don't know why.
I'll answer because I have had people say, "Well, why was the hospital so ruthless?" This is all. They had to be so cruel to do this, and it was like there was no time. This was 5 minutes of me being, getting thrown on and red. So the time span was super small.
Yeah.
They already let the doctor know that nothing was happening. Go back to bed, roll over. And so to get, when they prepare to do anesthesia and surgeries and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of prep work there. So they basically ran into an examination room with a scalpel, and, it was all.
Yeah. So what took you 20 minutes to tell us happened in like 4 minutes.
Exactly.
And also, when did you start talking about it? You said you found ions, hadn't spoken about it, and you found ions. How long ago was that? Was that recently?
That's been about 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so enamored with everyone else's story that what happened to me is I kind of got pissed off where I'm like, okay, why has everybody else got this great story to tell? And I just felt so in question.
Yeah, but there's more to your story. So
yeah,
let's move on. So you started asking questions and why me, but that rockets of desire, as Esther Hicks would say, were shooting out of you. I want to know more. Why?
I want to know more.
Ask and you shall receive.
This book, my first book. See this girl on the cliff? It's like, why?
Well, that was me when I was young. Mum's dying, she's sick and dying, and I'm going, what? Asking questions. Like when we ask the questions, Source comes to answer our questions, and this is exactly what happened to you.
Exactly.
So let's get into, how long ago did you start receiving the answers, and what? Tell us what happened.
It's been right around 12 years ago now. I felt like I started to ask, and in the humble and prayer, and I really would like to know more. And I attended a international conference at IANS, and happened to be sitting kitty corner at lunch from Dr. Eben Alexander, and he had his experiences. His first book hadn't even come out yet. It was not coming out for about another 6 weeks. And he was talking about how his experience was it had stopped. You continue to get these memories and these downloads, and it starts putting things together. And man, that really opened me up. And also the fact that he hadn't seen his father, and because I'm like, I didn't see my dad. I didn't have that to offer my mother. Or it was like, oh, I saw Dad and he's okay, and I didn't have it. And he was expressing that, though he had this amazing experience, but he didn't see his dad. So those two things really opened me up, where I went, okay, if we can continue to get these downloads and these memories, I'm ready for mine. I want mine. And so I would pray, and then I would cry about it, and then I would kind of be pissy about it, and just went through this whole array for about a year, where I was just like, and then when I started noticing my spirit guide in my dreams, there was this just weird character off on the side of whatever I was seeing, dreaming. It would just be where he was trying to pull me out of into an awareness of being lucid, being outside of the dream while the dream was still going on, that he would hold up a sign and go, pay attention to this. Or, it was kind of just where he'd wear these really odd costumes, and I'd be like, what the heck is, going on? And then he would take me to what I call spirit school. So I started getting these downloads and everything almost nightly. For now they've slowed down, but I even got something wonderful last night, and we can talk about it later. But it's like when I get something, I just wake up and go, hooray, and behind me are all, journals and journals. I journal my dreams. This is my contact. This is where I have been given a gift. You were asking, you come back with these gifts. And it's like, yeah, I've experienced almost everything. It's like I can converse intelligently, though none of them are my forte, as far as being a medium on a regular basis or something, which I would love to do. Man, to give that gift to someone, to just pull it out. But for me, I had to work in that in between sleep and wake, where it takes me all night to have that much contact that another medium can, say, oh, your sister's here or something. It's like, for me, that takes forever. Now, I know you can grow into every one of these different gifts of, but for me, I've just experienced them on, a limited basis here and there. And it's like, which one do I want to work on? Well, my dreams, I just trust so much. I've learned discernment in what I see, what I learn, and it's taken a lot of years, but I'm getting the good stuff just by going to sleep right now.
Well, I don't call them gifts. I call them abilities, because
Mm.
we all have the ability to do it, and we can all expand those abilities, including you, Claudia.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's so interesting because I don't remember much of my dreams, and I've been asking my guides, where do I go at night? What am I up to? But I don't really have too much conscious memory, but I have complete access to that sort of information in my conscious awakening life. So, or awake life, whatever you want to call it. And they're saying that it's frequency alignment. So in your dreams, you're not so much in your linear human mind, which vibrates at a different frequency. So when we worry or fret or stress, or we create a frequency which is not in alignment with the information or the awareness that you're asking for. And when you shift that frequency, you can do it in meditation, or you can do it in, guided visualization. You can do it all the time, or you can do it some of the time. You can align to that frequency. You can do it in hypnosis. That's what hypnosis is. A hypnotist will relax you. You're getting sleepy, you relax your body, relax. So as we start to relax and we change our frequency, our brainwave. We change it out of a beta into a alpha, into a theta brainwave. And when we're more in a theta brainwave, we have more access to information from a different dimension. Exactly. And that's why children can be so psychic, because children kind of operate in that theta brainwave most of the time, except when they're stressing, and they're like open sponges, and so they're more open to this other dimension. So you can do it if you want to. And I'm teaching courses on it this year, so come and do some courses. But you can do it if you want to, and many people teach how to do that. But we all can do it all the time, but we just have to shift our frequency. Yeah. So, but the ability,
it's like a muscle, or here the Olympics are on. It's like, these people have trained and they've worked their muscles, and they work out every day, and they eat properly, and they do everything to obtain that particular goal. And so, it takes work.
Well, it can. Some people are just naturally in alignment, and some people train. I first started radio with a friend of mine who was a working psychic. She did sort of talking to dead people, prediction type, your mainstream psychic, if there is a mainstream psychic. And then she became a teacher. But she learned it. She was like, I want to know how to do this. She had no awareness and no ability that she knew of, and she trained and did it. So there are a couple of ways people can train and do it, or people just have it.
Right.
But and that's why we've classically called it a gift, because in the past there wasn't schools to learn to be psychic, and so people that were psychic just naturally had it, and so we called it a gift rather than an ability. But anyway, we're getting off track. Let's hear some of your lessons and the ability to remember the lessons as you came back into your waking body. Now that's an ability. What was the some of the lessons that you were given?
And when you say that was an ability, actually, I had to really work on that. That was where, when I woke, I tried very hard not to open my eyes or to let the world in for just those few moments. Where was I? Because you can lose it. I call so many dreams sand dreams, where you wake up and they're gone. And no, you just can't bring them back for the life of you.
Yeah.
And so, and some of them are meant to just, they release anxiety or whatever. Not every dream is that wonderful spiritual dream, but I have found really cool things that happen even in the sand dreams. I'll give you one example. I lost my sister. It's been 10 years ago, and my little sister, and I missed her, and I was just having a regular dream. But when I woke up in the morning, I was like, something happened. And I went through that regular dream. And the one thing that stood out was there was a group of people. They were waiting in line to get in this store. There's a long story that the story doesn't matter. But what I remembered was my sister's face in the crowd. This beautiful smile at me. She was just looking at me and smiling. Not a word was spoken, but that's what I woke up with. The dream meant nothing, but I got to see my sister's face in that crowd. And so I preach all dreams are important. Try and review all of them. Try to, and it's hard when you're a busy mom or the alarm clock rings and you've got to jump out of bed and, get into the day. But man, if you can take those few seconds or on the weekend, turn that alarm off or whatever, and just, and ask you're not going to get these things if you don't let the universe or the light know that you want it. We're here with our free will in our life and we're busy doing. So there's no reason for, when people say, well, how come I don't have all of that? And it's like, well, are you asking for it? Are you letting, the light know that you really want this, that you want some of these pieces to the spiritual puzzle? It's like, you've got to ask first. But, and I went off track and now I'm sorry I did. I can't remember what I was trying to give you there. Oh, well, it just the importance of recording those dreams. And one of my first spirit schools, I'll tell you, because it's like, okay, what do you learn? What do you do in spirit school? I'll tell you about my guide, who is just funny as can be. He dresses up in weird costumes and, holds up the billboard, and I go with him. And when I'm in this school, there'll be a sign, like I'll get like the name of the chapter of a book or something, the title of the story. And this one is called Cause and Effect. And it was one of the first in my spirit school. And I saw myself on a kind of a stage, and I knew there were people around, but I don't see people. I just know that they're there. And I was sitting on this chair, and floating around me were these 12 bubbles. They were beautiful, luminous, colorful, like a, soap bubble type thing. And I saw myself in every single one of the bubbles, and they were rotating, this 12 bubbles. They were just slowly rotating in front of me. And I was encouraged to do something, so it was like I flipped my hair, I stuck my tongue out, or, wiggled my nose or did something. And inside of this bubble would be that something that I did. And as it would reach, and it was rotating clockwise, and when it would get to the top, it would release and bubble off, fly off, right? And another bubble, it was a continuing thing. And no matter what I did, stuck my tongue out or, whatever, it would capture that particular scene, and it would rise, and then it would rise and go away. And after a while of watching that, I got it. I said, well, because it was like, where are these bubbles going? The bubbles of me, my actions are continuing, right? It was alive, everything that was happening in this bubble. And I wish I could remember word for word, but basically I was telling the teacher, it's like, well, these are going off into different dimensions, and there must be a whole lot of different dimensions if every single one of us are continuing to have and to bring this, bubble thing, not just silliness, because this is a parable, this is a metaphor, right? It's a way for me to tell a story of when we come to a crossroads, some decisions and things in our lives, we retain who we were, and there's confusion here. It's like, is it the new one that bubbles off? And that is a question that I'm asking myself right now as I'm telling this story. So that's kind of it's kind of as you can tell, blah blah blah.
Okay, let me try and unpack this a little bit.
Unpack it for me.
So it was showing you that every decision you make creates another you,
Another me.
Or you reprint the same you.
I'm reprinting that you, but the decision that's made, say as a divorce, or
do I get divorced? Do I stay?
Child, or, you know, all of these things, moving or not moving, changing states or whatnot. There is a retention of you that goes off into another. You know, we talk about parallel lives.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to tell you why, because years ago in the Seth books, Channeled Information by Jane Roberts in the 60s, I read them when I was in my 20s, a long time ago. He said, every thought you have becomes a manifested reality. And I remember at that point, my poor little linear human mind was so confused and blown away. I threw the book across the room. Stop, it's driving me crazy. But you're actually explaining what he was talking about. And I say he, Seth, being a stream of consciousness, you know, put into identity. You're explaining what he was talking about. Yeah, you're saying that. Yeah, go on.
Well, I'll just grab a couple of sentences because I found it in my book that I said, I was catching on and said to the teacher, so the bubbles are going off into many directions and dimensions. The teacher said yes and leaned in closer with a nod for me to continue sharing my thoughts. So I said, the actions we create go on living, no matter how simple or complex. The choices and decisions we make, the crossroads we stand at, all of these actions continue on in another dimension. And he said, yes. He said, good. And with that, he turned away from me to address another student. But my mind was still racing with so many possibilities. And I thought, there must be a lot of bubbles out there from so many of us, since we are all constantly sending out these action bubbles. And there must be so many dimensions out there for all of these bubbles to go and continue on. And what he did was, and I was thinking at that point, but the teacher could still hear thought. We were no longer conversing. And he turned around and said, yes, 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 this one gets an A. This one gets an A.
Yeah. Every thought we think creates a reality, not necessarily your reality in your current physical, in this dimension, but in some probable dimension. It's every thought. Esther Hicks from the Teachings of Abraham was talking about this, and she was saying, you know, and somebody had asked, what about Hollywood movies? You know, they're creating these realities that we're watching on our screens. And she said, yes, Steven Spielberg has created many, many, many different realities and different dimensions. Because think about, we come up with monsters, and every time a Hollywood movie puts out, we've destroyed the world, like how many disaster movies does Hollywood pump out? It's all creation. It's all creation. It's all creation.
Because we are pieces of God.
Right.
We create. We're right. The creator. We are the creator. So of course our thoughts matter. Everything,
every thought.
What you're spinning, because it's created. Yeah.
Every thought you have. And this is how we cannot play victim to what shows up in our lives. I mean, when terrible things happen, we say, I would never have wanted to create that. But did you stress? Did you worry? Did you watch that sort of thing on television and said, I hope that never happens to me? Oh, that would be awful. I wouldn't want that. It's like we're thinking about it. And then something horrible happens and we think, I didn't create that. Did you think about it? Did you focus on it? Did you watch it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, have you ever gone into a supermarket or something in a bad mood, or something happened? All the oranges fell on the ground when you touched one, and you're in there just in this state of mad or whatever, and you're creating this situation for everybody around you. You've pulled the frequency of the wonderful smells and the fruit and everything that you're standing there in the market and being, just this raging maniac.
Yeah, like attracts like. You're attracting other people in bad moods, and
Yeah.
they're getting to experience the drama you're creating, and they think that they didn't create it because you're creating it. But were you in a bad mood? I remember, look, I don't know, we should share more of your story, but this happened to me. I had a fight with my husband many years ago. My daughter was little. To get away from him, I said, come on, and I took my daughter, we'll go shopping. We went into a crystal shop and we had a really pleasant interaction with the lovely lady in the crystal shop, and I bought my daughter a crystal, and then we went next door to the video shop. Yeah, back in the day when we had video shops, to buy a video. And I remember I placed the crystal on the counter and I placed the videos on the counter to pay for them, and she picked the videos up and she knocked the crystal off the table and it smashed all over the floor. And then my daughter was crying. I was upset. And I said, look what you've done. And then she went into a fit of rage and ordered me out of the shop. Like, she did this thing to us, but she just went into this. I remember coming home to my husband at the time and complaining about it. Like, how dare she, all in sense. How did I create that? I didn't create that. And he said, you totally did. You left the house in the same frequency that she, like I was in a fit of rage when we were fighting. And then I met a woman we collided because our energies were aligned. Yeah. But it was interesting because it didn't happen instantly, because I'd had a lovely interaction with the woman in the shop before. And I had shifted my rage to like feeling pleasant. But at the same time, I still was a vibrational match to her. This, who knows what was happening in her life and why she was so upset. Maybe she'd been dumped, or maybe she got bad news or whatever. But we collided with each other because we were offering the same frequency. Amazing lessons.
As you are offering your program and so many books and wonderful things are coming out, and we're all finding each other, right? As your audience is sitting here with these wonderful seekers, and it's like just wanting new information. It's just wonderful that frequency is becoming stronger.
Absolutely.
We are all finding each other. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So that lesson with the bubbles, was that one of the first lessons you got?
That's one of the first ones. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty intense for one of the first ones.
Well,
Tell us more. More lessons.
Okay. I was saving one for you. I just got this a couple of months ago. This was like 10, plus years ago. And I just grabbed a couple of journals to go backwards, because it's amazing what you forget. Or I'll be drawn to a page and go, oh my goodness, this piece matches this piece, because they come in separate pieces for me. It's like, okay, this is a great story. What I got, it's been a month ago, when I was in my near-death experience, and I was asking, is this a memory or is this a new development? And my guide said, does it matter? He's so funny. But I was racing amongst the stars. I was in a perfect bubble that I could hear everything and see everything, but I was in a protective bubble along with my guide. And we were in the universe, and we were approaching stars. And as we came to them, I could see the colors were like fire, not like flaming fire, but like licked by fire. You could see the pinks and the blues and the yellows in the fire. And as I would come up next to them, I could hear them, and they were speaking, they were conscious, and they were saying, oh, Claudia's here, Claudia's back, oh, welcome home. Every single one of them in this trail that we went through, it was amazing. The stars knew me. They were alive, and they were conscious. And so I woke with that and going, oh my goodness, there's consciousness out there. I've always felt it, but this to me was a confirmation, right? It had been 2 years later. And so I could talk about that, because what I talk about is what I know, what I'm given. I don't share my opinion generally. It's an opinion. We all have one, no, but when I'm given something like that from the light, I give it in an absolute. This is my truth, my knowing. So that's what I knew. Well, a few years after that, I got this. I was again in spirit school. I'm with my guide, and we're talking about the stars. And I was asking about their consciousness. And he said, do you want to see Jeff's star? Now, Jeff is my brother, and he's a year younger than me, and he's gone to the gym. He's suntanned and oiled, bronzed. He was, bodybuilder, all of the, he goes every day. His body is his temple, right? And I said, Jeff's star? Sure, show me Jeff's star. And the guide points, and this star did this twinkling thing, like a bodybuilder that's kind of doing I could just see this extra twinkle in this star in the sky. And I knew it was my brother's star. I was like, oh my God, that is my brother Jeff's star. Now I woke up and went, now I've got another question. I've got more information, but I've got bigger questions now, because it's like, well, if Jeff do we all have a star? Are we stars? It's kind of like all this information or all this questioning starts rolling about. And it's probably been 6 years ago that this happened. And I just a month ago got more information on stars. And I've been saving it for you, because it's like I wake up and go, aha. So forgive me and help me if I stumble in trying to relate it, because I don't have a whole lot of people that I talk to this way. This is my favorite thing to talk about, but you need an audience that has an open mind and is listening, right? I don't have that at home. So help me through it, Karen. But what I saw, I was in a place, and it was like a nebula. I was in a place that stars were being formed. And how it was shown to me was in a metal tube. And you could look down. We were in kind of an arena. And I say we because I'll step back a little bit, because what I was shown myself as a child. Now, in dream, some dreams you can't take everything literally. It's like sometimes things are a representation. So when you get a weird dream, look at it. It's like, why would he do that? Why would he say that to me? It's like, no, it wasn't necessarily that person, but they're giving you information, and you can relay it because that person was reliable or something in your life. That's what they represent to you. And so what was shown to me as myself as a child, now I'm, almost 70. So, there was this particular way people dressed and everything in the 50s and early 60s, when I was growing up. And I saw myself as about 9 years old. So this was being shown as my spiritual advancement, so to speak. I was about, that advanced, about a 9-year-old-ish advancement. And we were being called, there were 9 of us there, and we were being called primaries. Now, I don't know of our start in the spirit world. We've been taught, we're children of God. We've been, I don't have that information. I saw the youth. I think it was my particular soul group, but we were this was where our spiritual advancement, we were about 9 years advanced. And we were watching the star in this tube being formed, the dirt and gases and rock and everything. And it was starting to roll to the top. Again, we're in parable here, right? This is a metaphor here, so hang with me. So this molten ball is coming to the top of the tube, and we're looking down at it. We're in a balcony type situation watching it happen. And then as it was rising to the top, it was given light and life. It became alive. And where opportunity as we were in this part of our advancement, we were graduating on to receiving our own star. The star that was coming up, we were in turns of waiting for our star to be molded, made. And as it rose to the top, we were given the opportunity to give it personality, our personality. And what was shown to me was, as a, this young child, the girl in front of me, she wanted her star. She picked pink. It was showing personality. I'm going to have my star be pink. Or the boy in front of me, he liked Lincoln logs, but these were magnified. And so he was just putting Lincoln logs all around his star, like weird antenna things. Again, this is the metaphor of him giving this star his personality. But we are given our own star. Now I have this information, again, the questions, because it's like, well, is this where we reside? Is this where our higher self is? Do we, it's like we're here, what is heaven, so to speak? Why do we need our own star? Every answer that is given starts 10 more questions for me. It's crazy.
Darling, one I do know.
Yeah.
I'm the eternal questioner. Every time I hear someone's story, I've got a million questions. Oh.
Yeah.
Did those questions get answered for you? Does everyone have their own scar? Are they our higher self?
It feels like it's the third piece, like it's a continuing series. As I ask, because I'd like to know. It's like I know that we all have our own star. What we do with, if that's where we, our higher self, is this where our respite, do we go back to our own star after between lives? I have not been given that information.
So here's a question for you. Is the star a ball of energy that is in another dimension, not perceivable in this dimension? So we look up into the sky and we see stars, and what we're seeing is gaseous planets, or I don't know what we're seeing, but our sun is considered a star. So our sun is a star to somebody else on another planet.
Right.
Has that question been answered? Something you can ask them.
Yeah. I'll keep asking. But it was one of my ahas, just a recent one. And then, and it kind of goes into another spirit school that I went to, because there's this question of, why are we here? What's our purpose? Right. It's like we wake up in the morning and we, get ready for work, and we're there all day, and then we're thinking about what's for dinner, and we got to get laundry in, and maybe an hour of TV before we retire, and do it all over again. This just wheel of nothingness. Just, it's like there has to be more, right? And so I would, like anyone else, I'm asking, it's like, what's our purpose? Why? And why don't we know? Why, you hear about the veil of forgetfulness, right? Why can't we remember? But then you think about that we're on this planet of duality, right? It's like, it's either hot or it's cold, or it's, you're well or you're sick. And, it just seems like that you just go through life in these two either ors, through your whole life. And so my question, sorry, I was starting to go off track, and I want to stay where I was going. I saw myself in, and this name of this class I'm going to grab was, this was a layering, a description and explanation of all the questions that we have. Because we have these huge life questions, and it's like, why can't we get them? I was on the other side. And on all the other people who have been on the other side, why didn't they bring all the answers back? Why is there just this piece, and every one of us just has this little piece? And I was there one time, again, I don't know if it was my actual NDE or in memory, or a new piece of the puzzle, because as I said before, my guide said, doesn't matter. It's like, here, I'm giving you this. And I'm standing in this ocean of information, right? It's all there. People come back and go, everything that I asked, it was like it just whisked through my left ear, like the answers were all there and it all made sense. And you're standing there in this vast knowledge, an ocean of it, and you're holding a paper cup, and it's like, okay, it's time to go back. Scoop up what you can, and that's what you get to bring back with you, right? And it's so frustrating until I figured out that my paper cup, that ocean inside that paper cup, is an essence of everything. And if I will take time and examine every single drop within that small little container of the knowledge out there, you'll get it. You just have to be patient, because it takes longer to examine that little drop, right? But in my spirit school, sorry, I've got about 3 different directions I'm going here. So why don't we have all the answers? We go through this veil of forgetfulness, and we're here in a limited capacity. Brain, we're brilliant, wonderful, magnificent souls. But if we had all of the answers, our brains would explode, right? It's just so much. And what was given to me in spirit school was an example. In the late 50s, there was this decoration pillow on people's couches. And it was this translucent kind of brown fabric, and it had little pink hard dots on it. It was ugly. It really was. But I remember a friend, this was on her couch, and I'd seen it in other living rooms, popular back then. And so my guide asked me to describe this pillow. And I started to say that same thing. Well, the fabric, you can kind of see through it. It's kind of translucent. It's kind of this brown color. And he said, no. He says, I want you to describe this pillow as if you're telling somebody that doesn't even know what material is, or the fabric. You've got to explain how it's put together, and he said, I want you to pretend you're calling your son Jesse. Now, Jesse, I can spiritual speak to. It's awesome. But he says, call Jesse, talk to him and try to explain what this pillow is. And, it's very frustrating to talk about color if somebody doesn't know what color is. It's like suddenly your tongue is so twisted in trying to describe something it seems simple, but there were layers upon layers of trying to give this information out. And he expressed I wanted to grab this little piece because we got to a certain point, and I marked it and then I lost my mark. Where is it? We got to a certain place. There it is. And he said, I'm going to read this part too. But he stopped me there. Pretend you are describing all of this to your son Jesse over the phone, but now add trying to describe an onion, its many layers, its pungent colors, the feel of it, firm yet wet. Then describe the color from there. Then describe the pillow and the polka dots of an entirely different texture that doesn't match it or fit the texture or translucity. Then explain the tiny hardball dots of fabric that are fuzzy to the touch. This could go on, trying to describe a pillow to someone who isn't familiar with fabrics or that era when this cloth was popular. And we haven't even touched on a description of the color of the pink dots yet. And then he went, took a deep breath and went, how do you describe the undescribable? It's like it has to come in these layers. And so
basically he was saying, to your human linear limited perspective, you perceive the world through your physical senses. We're trying to give you information.
Exactly.
And then dumb it down.
you've got to build on a foundation. We have to become solid in our knowing of this and that, and then you get these little pieces. Otherwise the mortar, it's like we're just going to tumble and lose our minds or whatever.
I was saying before, when I read in my 20s that every thought becomes a reality, to my mind at that point, it just exploded my mind, because I couldn't even conceive of that concept. And now I've discussed it many times, and even today it's come up, and there's puzzle pieces, as you say, explanations of how that happens. And now I get it, but I had to understand that this is not the only reality, that reality is multidimensional, but it's all real and it's all a reality. And but back then I couldn't have conceived of that, because I didn't know that it was any other reality but this reality. So
well, and in my personal limited capacity, it's like I get so much, but I rely on these types of programs and listening to somebody else and reading somebody else's book and grasping further concepts. Information, further concepts, different languages, the way someone uses language, that it can, there can be many ahas,
right?
Like you don't just depend on your own, seek, and then if something makes sense, then it's like grab hold of it, use it, incorporate it, and if it doesn't, put it on the mind shelf, just set it aside.
I wanted to say to you that apart from doing podcast shows, you don't have an audience like this to talk to, maybe your son a little bit. So start. Claudia now has a weekly Zoom meeting where she calls it Spirit School. And if you want to sign up, contact Claudia on her website or
I love it.
Facebook and sign up to Claudia's Spirit School. Like, just do it. And if you want to charge people, or just say, give me a donation and start teaching. Spirit School, honey. Spirit School is open. The bell has rung. Spirit School's open.
I love it. Right now, I just love promoting other people. I want to be the wind under other wings too. We have so much to share. And so for you to allow me to be here today is just awesome. I just appreciate it.
You can do both. I know that you've got your little family living with you, your grandchildren, but you got time. You're sort of retired now. It's not like you have to go to 9 to 5. You got time. It's so interesting. A lot of people in the spiritual arena, a lot of people I speak to are sort of older, and it's at that time where you've finished raising your kids and going to work, and that you've got time to actually do what I'm doing and do courses, do Zoom meetings, have gatherings. You've got the time, and people are seeking, and you've got a wealth of knowledge. A couple of things I wanted to ask you. Did you meet your dad in spirit in your dreams?
No. And I know it's taken me a long, in dream.
In your dreams.
He's been gone since 1969, and I did not have a dream or anything of him for almost 40 years.
Right.
And it was so frustrating. And I understand why, because I would have never, if I'd have seen my dad, I'd have never been able to come back, and I think that's true, for Dr. Alexander, I think, said something like that. It's like, I know there's a reason why I didn't. He has come into me in dream now.
Yeah.
And because we have an agreement, I had to mourn him less. I was holding on too hard.
Right.
And in losing my sister, and then 3 years later, losing my mother, now I have to, besides grandparents and whatnot, and aunts and uncles, those are my three on the other side.
I want to say something to you. I've got Stephen Simon coming up in the Inner Sanctum this weekend, and you're welcome to come and meet him. So he's a movie producer. He's made What Dreams May Come, and he made the Conversation with God movie with Neil Donald Walsh and the Indigo movie. He's made many Hollywood movies, but his wife died about 3.5 years ago, and he's communicating with her in spirit in his waking life, his physical waking life, and he wrote a book called What Dreams Have Come. with Lauren, and he's our guest teacher in the Inner Sanctum. But what I wanted to say to you is that Lauren kept saying, stop saying you've lost me. I'm right here. Because we, this vernacular that we have when people die, I've lost somebody, they've died. My dead friends always say, honey, I'm more alive than you. Stop saying I'm dead. I'm like, sorry. Every time I said she's dead, I go, I'm sorry, she left her body.
There we go.
The Matrix, I always correct myself, because these words that we use, I've lost people, they're dead, it's actually creating a narrative that's not the truth. And Lauren, even though he says it, he slips up, like when I lost Lauren, oops, no, I didn't lose her when Lauren left her body. Because they're not gone to us. Not gone, they're just not here. They are here. We just we're just not a vibrational match to their frequency, unless exactly unless we are. Oh my goodness. I wrote a story of the number 432 that I kept seeing after my mother passed. 432. It was everywhere. And I finally looked up 432, and it's a vibration. It's a communication vibration. And when I saw my mother in dream a few months after she was gone from me, from this mortal world, I saw her behind a window, and I knew she wanted to communicate with me, but it was like we just weren't. So I could see her, but I couldn't hear her. And then I started seeing this 432 everywhere and going, oh my goodness. And one time I was in dream, but I woke up and I had my hands like I was yelling and going, Mom, I'm trying to raise my vibration to 432. You need to bring yours down just a little bit, and we can kind of meet in the middle. But I'm waking up and I'm literally yelling. It's kind of like, so we do. We have, we don't match, but it doesn't mean that we can't work on it and do it. So right. My, the cousin, I talked about my dad's cousin, when her husband died, and when she died, I went over to New Zealand to care for her and help her cross over. It was funny because she was so wanting to die. She kept saying every day, how do I die, Karen? How do I die? She wasn't sick enough to die. And I said, Hope, her name was Hope. Make a decision and line up with it. It's like any other decision, any other manifestation we have in this physical world. We have to make a decision. You stop saying I want to die and just saying I'm going to. And that's exactly what she did. I remember one of her other relatives said, I'll see you tomorrow, Hope. And she looked at her and she said, I won't be here tomorrow. And I'm like, she's made the decision. She's made the decision, and she wasn't. But anyway, what was I going to say about her? So after she died, I didn't have access to her. And I'm like, why? I think I was wanting it too much. I was too much. I don't know. I just wasn't a match to her frequency. And then one morning, exactly like you said, Claudia, I was in that period of awakening into my physical body, coming from that different dimension, dream state, into the physical. And I was in that in-between sleep. And I remember she stuck her head right in front of my face. Oh, yeah. And she said, can you see me now? And she screamed at me so loudly that it literally woke me up out of my dream, my sleep. And I went, oh. And as soon as I woke up into the physical, she had gone. Oh. But I was like, I laughed because I kept saying, where are you, Hope? Where are you? Why can't I kept asking and not letting myself experience her in spirit until that morning. And then she said, can you see me now? She had worked really hard to get through. It was hilarious. And I just laughed. I laughed. So funny. Yeah. I call that, because when it's up that close, it's like it's a screen. I'm not going to describe it well. Like, they're not at the foot of the bed, but they're right here. Her face was right in my face. Right there. Right in my face. So big. Yeah. When I was really, because we talked about my illness, because I was ill for 3 years, but I had an angel, and she was like right here, this redheaded angel. And she was talking to me, and I could see her, but she was right here. So there's a way, because, and I had told my dad, it's like, I saw ghosts and things when I was a kid. So I know I came in with some of these abilities, and I didn't want to see ghosts, right? Right. So I remember telling him, it's like,
don't stand at the end of my bed and scare the crap out of me, Dad. But when they're right here in that, they're in a visual, but it's screen isn't the right word, but it's not in the room. I don't know how to explain that, but I get it. Because I see that all the time. They're right here.
Couple of things I want to touch on before we go. You've spoken about this on many other shows, but your guide, well, initially he appeared to you as a galactic guide, like galactic, which kind of shocked you when you first started seeing him. He didn't look human.
Well, when I first started seeing him, he looked the first contact I had with him, he was dressed up like a fairy.
He's laughing.
Oh, he had, he had a chubby cigar, and he was chubby, and he had hair all over the back of this fairy costume, and he would touch this wand and go, pay attention to this, watch this, or come with me. So that was one of his first costumes. So I got, he is proceeded to wear different costumes, and so I know immediately it's him. It's like, oh, we're going to spirit school, yay! It's like and this is where that I find mediums so helpful, because I could get so much, but it's like I wanted a little bit more, and I wanted to know who my spirit guide was. This was early on, but I was told by a medium that I may not want to know, because she knew me and knew that I had, kind of the scaries of some things. And she told me that he looked like a gargoyle and that I might be afraid of my spirit guide. And I was like, a gargoyle, but she says he's all white. And, I don't, he's furry. And so I went, well, what's his name? And she said, I can't pronounce it. He speaks in this clicking noise. And so this is what she saw and heard. It opened up this doorway for me to understand him more, because he was coming in costume so that he wouldn't scare me. Right. It was, but I did see him in dream one time. He let me see him as he was. And he's a teddy bear of a gargoyle. He's full of love and beautiful. And I thank him for letting me see him that one time. But he still comes to me in costume.
I'm going to tell you what he's showing me. He says that he actually, who he really is none. He's not the fairy. He's not the gargoyle. He's a point of consciousness. And you've seen him many times as that, actually. And you've even been quite well versed in describing that, saying that we look like fire and all that. I mean, that's really what he looks like. And he can present in any form. And the gargoyle form that he presented to the medium in, because he presented to her, not to you, as the gargoyle, was to help you again, knock you out of the paradigms that we get stuck in our human mind, and to expand your awareness of life and creativity throughout the cosmos, so to come. It's one of those things we would like to talk about openly, is our belief in extraterrestrial and all of that. But as healers and here on a spiritual, it was one of those things where it's like, I can cover all these bases, but then someone says, well, what about aliens? Right. And it's not that we don't have information about alien life or our contact with. It's the fact that we're going to get laughed at by so many people. Well, he's got a great sense of humor. He reminds me of Michael Tamura, actually. Are you Michael Tamura looking like a gargoyle? And he's laughing at that too. Oh my God. So he says that especially with your religious dogmatic, belief systems, and the way that humanity has demonized alien life. I mean, he finds that hilarious when you understand that there is such an infinite vastness of life throughout the dimensions and cosmos, and the puny little human mind says, is there any life out there? So in this vast universe, it's like, it's only us. It's only us. And all aliens look human if there are, and to present as a gargoyle-ish sort of, he just thinks that's hilarious. He came to me about a month ago,
as an angel. As angel's been a topic. Someone asked me if do angels have wings and that. I don't have a lot of information about angels, but other than my redheaded one that was here one night. But he came to me and he was in a white robe and he had long white hair. And I was kind of like, is this my higher self? Is this Jesus? Is this God? You know, for a while you're looking at the robe, right? And then he took his wing. There were kind of some wings on the back, and he took one of them and he waved it at me, and I went, "Oh my God, that's my guide!" So
that's hilarious.
He's really, and they're so funny on the other side. This business of being so serious, and
I know.
Oh my goodness!
I want to say something to you too. I want to thank you. You gave me some words that I want to use. An ocean of knowledge. You said we take the cup and we dip into the ocean of knowledge. The way my mob, I call my team, my guides have shown me who they are is not like your guide, which is singular identity based. They never did. And I kept asking, why? What do you look like? And they kept laughing at me because they thought I was hilarious, looking for some singular identity. Not to say that it's not great to have that connection to a singular identity, even though he can look like a gargoyle or fairy or an angel or anything, or a fire or a point or a star. But this is the way but the ocean of knowledge, when you were talking about dipping into an ocean of knowledge, when you said that, I thought that's a great description for my guidance. It's an ocean of knowledge. And as I connect, I can dip into it and they can bring down this pieces, like this cup of knowledge. It's just a beautiful depiction. And it was, I want to thank you for that. An ocean of knowledge. Who are your guides? They are an ocean of knowledge. It's just a beautiful description. Yeah. And so the last thing before we go, I've been yakking for ages, so many questions. I wrote down here, listening to you, why do sick people, look, I've got lots of questions I could have asked you that I haven't asked you yet. Talking to people in comas or something like that. But you said last night you had spirit school and you got some information. So I believe that they were giving you some information because of this conversation. So I'd love to know what you got last night.
Oh, that I almost forgot. Yeah. And I haven't even written it in my journal. Isn't that terrible? But it was so big that I remembered. Big because it's another piece. You know, we talk about reincarnation, or earlier we didn't get a chance to talk about reincarnation, but the layering and knowledge and the fact that we are living parallel lives. In my dream, I had a piece of artwork, and it was kind of I want to say a living piece, kind of like Harry Potter-ish type thing where it could move. It was still art. It wasn't alive, but it was a repeat of them, a repetitive motion or something, right? And it had a problem. It needed to be cleaned on the face or something. And I guess I was, someone to do with, fixing art, because I had this little cloth and a little bit of an oil or something that I was trying to remove some dirt or something off of this portrait. And I was trying to be careful, but something happened, and it was like a film that lifted, and it was like, oh my goodness, I kept trying to push this film back, this paint back, because I was destroying this portrait, right? But the more that pulled back showed the same person, except for they were in a whole different situation. They were doing something else. And it was like every time that I could pull that little layer back, there was another piece of this person's, because it wasn't me, it was something that could have been me, but not this me. But it was showing, it's like as we remove those layers, there is another dimension. There's so much parallel. We are doing all kinds of things out there. And you mentioned just a little bit about people in coma. I worked 5 years as a hospice volunteer. I've seen a lot of people pass, and I will jump into the ending that I wanted to end with, because there has been a lot of loss recently. We've lost movie stars and rock stars and people that we've watched, and so many people have lost family and are in COVID and illness and everything. There's a lot of exiting of off the planet right now. And it's just the physical that's they're still here. Their spirit is here. We can contact, but we're unable to go to the movies or go to the restaurant together, so to speak. And that's the thing that's really hard. But every time that someone passes, no matter how much I love them or whatnot, it's like, I'm going to miss that, but I'm so happy for them because they have come to the end of their mission and they're excited to go back. It's wonderful to be there. And I can't help but being happy for them, and you're in this particular religion or whatnot, there's a lot of open caskets, you can view the body or whatever. And it's hard sometimes to look at that shell that used to be that person, and they're not there. This is their overalls. Was their spacesuit for this adventure, right? They've gone home. And it's hard sometimes not to smile, so out of place at a funeral, right? But I'm like, man, I'm happy for them. They've done their thing. They've fulfilled their mission, their purpose. They've left us behind.
They've left the body behind. Uh-huh. Yeah, I believe that all funerals should be celebrations of life, really. Mm-hmm. Rather than crying over why they've left, celebrate when they were here and what you learned from them. And yeah, it should always be a celebration. It should always be a celebration. I remember years ago, Catholic girlfriend, her mother had passed, and I lived about an hour away from the city, and the funeral was that day. And I remember washing the floor or vacuuming the floor. It was either the morning of the funeral or the day before. But anyway, I just had this, I'm going to the funeral, because I don't normally like to go and cry with people, because I've got a big smile on my face and it looks inappropriate. People are like, why aren't you crying? Anyway, I went to her funeral and it was the most amazing party. Apart from the church service, which was really interesting, Catholic church service, we went to, have the wake afterwards, and there was music and people were dancing, and it was actually a real celebration of her life. And I thought, this is how it all should be. I don't know why it turned into that. Maybe she asked for it. She was quite an amazing woman. That was many years ago, probably about 15 years ago now. But it should be a celebration.
Well, and I would find myself looking around, seeing if I could see them, Are they here? I know they're here somewhere. Where are they?
Yeah, quite often I'll hear them critiquing their own funeral.
Oh, wow.
A friend of mine's, another Catholic mother, died. She had dementia for many years before she died, and Alzheimer's. Last time I saw her, she poked a tongue at me. She didn't have any idea who I was. And I was looking at her, and she didn't like me looking at her. So she anyway, she was like that. She had a great, but when she died at her funeral, and her daughter, who was a friend of mine who I went to school with, is a complete atheist, like a staunch atheist, like, don't come at me with any of your spiritual crap or that religious crap, so really, anyway, so here I am sitting not next to her, but in the church, and her mother is like, I'm so happy, tell them how happy I am, I'm here with Jesus, I'm with Jesus, tell them how happy I am. Like, and I feel like, shut up, Libby, I'm at the funeral.
I'm supposed to be crying.
And I couldn't tell her daughter that, because her daughter wouldn't believe me, because she's such an atheist. But wouldn't that have been a lovely message for her, that watching her mother decay for the last, I don't know how many years, 10 years before she died, mentally and physically, and then hearing that elation, how happy she was. And she was very into Jesus. She had rosary beads all over the house and talked about Jesus a lot. And she's like, I'm here with Jesus. I'm up here with Jesus. And I'm here with my other, dead friends. And just so elated, so ecstatic, her energy. But I couldn't tell any of my skeptical school friends this, because they just...
Well, and when the skepticism is that thick, it's in a way, I think it's still fear-based. It's like, I don't know. to hold on to something that tightly. I don't want to know anything. I just want to have this darkness when I die. I'm just done. I don't know.
They were Catholic girls in the convent. I went to that school for a year and met them all there. And many of them just threw the baby out with the bathwater. They weren't sort of too turned on with the whole Catholic thing. So they just went, no, it's all crap, including consciousness and spirituality, including neuroscience and quantum physics, just throw it all out. So it's interesting how that happened. Okay, well, now that message that you got last night about peeling the layers back, how do you think that message relates to what we've experienced today? Because I really believe there was a message there, like there's more to us than meets the eye. Peel the layers back.
Absolutely. Well, I know I throw it into the layering. That would have been part of that chapter. Had that chapter not already been written, it's like, now here's another second piece, because I've heard so much recently about parallel lives. Where was it? I heard, and then the old Twilight Zones, right? It was a few days ago. I flipped on one of those and it was talking about parallel universe. And I really feel like there, when the students are ready, the teacher will come. And I think I'm hearing more and more people describe these other places or the world I wish I could remember who it was that was talking about in this particular world, Earth, the Twin Towers were still standing.
Right, yeah.
Things that happened.
I think it was Garnet Schulhauser. Was it Garnet? He visited a few parallel realities with his spirit guide.
Maybe it was.
And he said it on one of my shows, and he went to New York and he was in Harlem and the Twin Towers were still up. And he'd done, I might get, because he's been to a few, I might be merging the two stories, and he said that there were very few African American people because slavery hadn't happened, and so there was this much smaller population. Yeah, it was really interesting.
We're in sync. It's exactly. Was that on your show?
Well, he might have shared it on other people's shows too, but yeah, it's in his book. And in his latest book, he went to another parallel reality where Muhammad had not, the Muslim religion had not, so there were no Muslims. Interesting. Infinite parallel realities.
So the air was not so bad in one of them. Something
not as polluted.
It wasn't as polluted or something. And so, in answering that question, it's kind of like, this is what I got. I'm still a seeker. That's why I listen to all of these programmings. That's why I'm going to go back and listen to some more of Garrett's as well. What is his name again?
Garnet Schulhauser. Yeah. Oh, his books are fabulous. I love his books. They just give us they're a bit, I suspect they're a bit like your books. It's the same thing really. His guide, but same thing really. He has his guide, takes him out into his astral body and flies him around and gives him all this, shows him all this stuff. Then he comes into his physical body and he has full memory in the morning and he writes it down. But his guide is showing him so much that it's just like little snippets of stuff just to awaken us. And it just really awakened me to the possibility of the universe. Like, oh my God, that's not a myth. That's real. They're real. And,
well, have you read Dr. Michael Newton's books, Journey of Soul?
I have, yeah.
Well, I've read all of them, so I'm not sure which book it was in, talking about suicide, and the fact that she was able to see if she had made a different choice. Now, I'm not making any kind of statement on suicide. We don't have time to go into that.
Yeah.
And my statement would not be negative, so I'll just. but what was shown her is, had you not made this particular choice, and I think that pulls in some of those parallel.
Oh, really? Yeah, absolutely. My best friend committed suicide
from her trip here, right? Because we're here to experience, right? We're here as foot soldiers for God to bring back experiences of the physical, so that God can experience the physical. So she still had an opportunity through these parallel lives
to make a different choice.
To make a different choice, and this is what this could have been. And so she still learned, she still had that experience. So
going back to what Seth said, every thought, like if you're contemplating suicide, there can be a thought, I'll do it, and there'll be a thought, I won't do it, and every thought becomes a manifested reality in some dimension. I had a friend who committed suicide, and after she died, she was haunting people. She was hilarious. She was being funny. People that were skeptical too, they experienced her. One person said he woke up and he had like someone sitting on his chest, and he was freaked. And then when he stopped freaking, he thought, my God, that's Kate. And then when he had Kate, the thing lifted and he could feel her he couldn't see her, but he could feel her in the room, in the bedroom. Like he was haunting people. It was hilarious. She was haunting people. I don't think she was haunting. She was just there, but they were perceiving her in some way. They kind of knew that her presence was there, but she was very much talking to me. And then another friend that had died who was born with thalidomide, she had the dream to travel the world, but because she was so sick, she couldn't get insurance. And without insurance, she couldn't travel because she had a lot of medical needs that she needed to address while she was traveling. So after she died, she traveled the world with her boyfriend who had also died. They traveled the world. They did what she couldn't do. Like she made those choices. She experienced what she couldn't experience in this life she experienced. Yeah, so it's all there. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's
many layers, just like many layers. Many layers to you, many layers to me. I'm not just the podcast host. There's many more layers to me, many more layers to you. You're not just the NDE experiencer. You're also a master teacher in your spirit school. There are many layers to all of us, really. And that was the message of last night's dream, I should say, last night's spirit school.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing you getting your spirit school up and running, on Zoom or even in the physical. I'm sure that we can't have enough of it, Claudia. We can't have enough spirit schools in this world. The time is right. And thank you so much for sharing with us on the show today.
Be open out there, audience. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too. It's been beautiful. And I'll invite you in you can come into our group, and probably be towards the end of the year now. If you'd like to sort of speak to a group, you might have your own group up and running by then. You can speak to My Little Tribe and take questions. Start that spirit school.
Awesome. Thank you, girl. Bye-bye, everyone.
What a wonderful conversation with Claudia. She's a wealth of knowledge, tapped into the ocean of knowledge. I love that, the ocean of knowledge. And her books sound fascinating. I hadn't actually read her books before the show, but Spirit School. I love the name of it and everything, trying to get her up and running with her physical spirit school, not just in a book. So reach out to Claudia if you're interested. She said, thank you for kicking me up the behind. So because she's been thinking about doing it for a while, but then there's that trepidation and fear and who wants to talk to me and all that sort of stuff we worry about as humans, don't we? Judging ourselves. But wealth of information. I invited her to come in as a guest to the Inner Sanctum in July 16th, 17th of July 16th in the US, 17th in Australia, which is a Sunday here, Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. Mountain Time, to meet you. If you want to join up, I've opened the Inner Sanctum to guest teachers as a free or by donation basis. Just pop your email on the website, Inner Sanctum, Karen Swain /inner-sanctum.com or karenswain.com/inner-sanctum. Just pop your email in and I'll add you to the list and send out the Zoom link with the password to join us online, and you can meet her on Zoom and ask her questions. There are other questions that I didn't get to. Talking to people in comas. Why do really sick old people linger for weeks or even months or even years when they're just like this, like corpse in a bed, and then there's no really quality of life? Like why would a soul choose to do that? And anyway, we started talking about that afterwards, and she had a lot to say about that. Like she's just got instant answers, and many reasons for that. And also we spoke about that it looks like they're alive, but their body is operating, but the soul's not in the body. The soul's off doing other things, flying around the cosmos, while the body's lying there going, dying and not eating and stuff like that. And they're witnessing it from above. And us humans are looking at the body and thinking that we're talking to the person, and they're not even in the body. It's really interesting. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they aren't. We have a choice what we want to experience, how much of the physical experience we want to experience. We can pop out. If it's a bit hideous, we can pop out and witness it from above. Like many people I've had on the show, I remember Nancy Hines, Nancy Rain. Oh God, what's her last name? It's been a few years. Nancy Rhines. I think that's it. Anyway, she's an atheist who was hit by a truck. And she said that, I loved this explanation. She said that she witnessed as she was being dragged under the truck. She had an NDE, obviously, after that, when she went into hospital, witnessing it from outside the truck and being underneath the truck, dragged underneath the truck simultaneously. So she saw herself as two aspects, experiencing it and witnessing it. So it's really interesting, isn't it? We are so multidimensional. We are so multi-layered, like the message that Claudia got last night in her spirit school. Multi-layered. There's so many layers to us, peeling back the skin. We're not just this flesh body. We are the multidimensional consciousness animating the body. We are magnificent points of light, extensions of the creator, extensions of source energy, infinite intelligence, infinite creative potential. And every thought creates a reality. And the more you keep thinking a thought, the more you create a physical reality in this current reality that you're focused on. We are magnificent, powerful creators. We really are. And what do you want to create? What are you focused on? What are you worried about? Stop worrying about, focus on what you want instead of what you don't want. What ifs, those what ifs. I've got a YouTube. I used to make YouTube little inspirational movies before I started interviewing or chatting, having conversations with people. And one of them is called What Ifs. Turn your what ifs into, what if I got everything I wanted? What if I was healthy? What if I was doing the work that really lights me up and turns me on? And what if I made a huge difference to this world, instead of the what ifs that we normally go into? What if it doesn't work? What if I lose all my money? What if I get sick and die from COVID? What if, what if, what if? Turn your what ifs around into what if I knew myself as a genius creator of my reality, and I could flow my energy in a way that felt good to me, created a beautiful, exciting life, and inspired and uplifted many others. What if? Check out my little what if. It's right down on my YouTube page. You know, if you click oldest instead of newest, you'll find it there. I uploaded it about, 12 years ago. Anyway, yeah, beautiful. So Claudia's going to come and speak to us in July, and we can quiz her and ask her questions. Hopefully she'll get her Zoom spirit school up by then. If not, we'll give her a taste of what it's like to have an audience asking her questions. So come and join us. And as I said to her, this Saturday, your time or US time, depending on where you are in the world, and Europe, Stephen Simon is coming in to meet us Sunday here in Australia, Sunday mornings for us. And come and meet him if you want to come and meet him and quiz him about his experiences with his wife, Lauren, on the other side. But not just that, he's a wealth of knowledge about consciousness and spirituality and getting his message out through cinema, through movies, through the movies that he's made. He's he knows heaps of movie stars and heaps of really famous, if you like, consciousness teachers like Neil Donald Walsh and the likes. And he's a beautiful, wonderful man. So come and meet him if you want to come and meet him. If not, the recording will be on the YouTube channel or on my website. Thanks again for listening and watching. And thanks again for sharing the shows and telling other people to subscribe and all that good stuff. I really appreciate it when you share the shows and grow the channel. Because it's not, the channel's not about me. The channel's about the messages, the stories, the teachings, the enlightenment. Share the love, spread the love. I really appreciate it. And remember to check out the book Awakened by Death if you haven't already. It's a good read, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.